All right, technical session number 45, data destruction and disposal methods. Not all data disposal methods are created equal. After this technical session, we're going to be able to explain the purpose of disposing of data and when it would be appropriate. Compare and contrast the following methods of disposing data: formatting, sanitation, and destruction. The latter tends to be the most cathartic for most people, but not always the most effective. Describe common ways to physically destroy data on hard drives. All right, why and when to dispose of data? Susan, can you please read for us?
As faster and more reliable hard drives come out in the market, old hard drives tend to be replaced and thrown away. In other scenarios, desktop computers or laptops get replaced for new ones, and the old PCs are given away to other people or sent to the trash. On all these scenarios, it is important to delete data from the hard drives. An appropriate data destruction disposal plan would be in place to avoid any potential leak of data. Getting rid of data with magnetic drives is not an easy task. When something is deleted in Windows, even after emptying the recycle bin, data remains in the storage device until new data overwrites it or replaces it.
Excellent. So even when we delete it, it isn't necessarily gone. Even when we empty the recycle bin, it isn't necessarily gone. It's still there. Just the means by which the computer allocates it or looks for it, that has changed. That was why it was important to understand the file allocation table and how it sorts data. And when you format a drive, it basically just tells the computer it's okay to write over these sections, even though the data is still there. If you have a forensic data recovery knowledge, you can recover a lot of that data. So be aware. The main methods of disposing of data that we would typically use fall into three main categories. You have formatting, which, like we said, prepares the drive to hold new information. We have sanitation, which involves the wiping the data on the drive itself. And then we have destruction, which renders the drive no longer usable. And there are a few methods that fall under that category. We have the industrial shredder, which, yes, they actually do have shredders that can tear up hard drives. If you're looking to purchase one, they only cost about $15,000 to $20,000 to start. We also have electromagnetic degaussing for your mechanical drives. Drill and hammer, which tends to be a preferred entertainment way for getting rid of hard drives. Then you have incineration, the use of fire. And then you have the certificate of destruction, which isn't necessarily a method of getting rid of it, although it is a proof that the data has been destroyed. And with certain types of data, certain types of companies, you need to maintain certificates of destruction to prove, if an audit occurs, that you took the appropriate measures to get rid of those drives. So formatting falls into two types. Typically, you have your standard format, which they have two options with your standard format. You have your quick format and regular format. Does anybody remember the difference between quick and regular? What is happening on regular that is not happening on quick? To break up my popsicle sticks here.
I know, if I remember correctly, like the regular format, it does more of a thorough, like a full, like a more of a completed. With the quick is, I'm trying to remember, how, like I know the regular is longer, the quick is shorter. I remember that.
That is an astute
But,
operation, observation.
I'm trying to remember, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry. I'll take any friends that's out there in the audience, guys. I thought I had it. I'm sorry.
Steven?
Knocking on the right doors.
I know it doesn't do it completely. Yeah, I forgot to. I'm looking at it, but I forget it.
I would advise revisiting this because the difference between a regular and a quick format basically marks the sections of the drive available to be rewritten on. So the data isn't necessarily erased, but it's basically telling the computer if new data comes in, it's okay to write in these sections. What a regular format does is it does that on top of checking the drive for errors to see if there are any sections that are bad on the drive so that it knows not to write to those sections. So it does take longer to actually test each section of the drive, make sure it's okay, and whether or not it's okay to write data to it. So that's the difference between your quick and regular. So quick just basically says anything here can be written over, and then regular goes through and goes, before we say that, let's make sure this stuff is okay to be written to. And so it does a quick check. Then we get to the other type of formatting, which is called low-level formatting. Typically, this is only done at the factory. And this actually does completely wipe the drive clean. Most of them, IDE and SATA drives, are low-level formatted by the manufacturer prior to them being shipped out. And it has to be done prior to the drive even being able to be partitioned. There was a guy in our cohort who actually could do who did low-level formatting on USBs and stuff like that. He had special programs that he bought to do that. But again, typically this is done at the manufacturer. So low-level formatting does not mean it is a lesser form of formatting. It's actually more intense. It's going deeper into the drive itself to perform that formatting, and it is something that must be done before a drive could even be partitioned and set up for operating systems. All right, William.
I just have a question about when you format a drive, does that reduce the life of the drive or increases it, or
Neither.
does anything happen in like?
All formatting is basically doing is telling the computer that it is okay to write to these sectors. Regardless of what is there prior, these sections are okay to write to now. That's what it's doing. Now, with regards to extending or shrinking the life of a drive, I have not heard or read anything that would give me that indicator. Though writing and erasing a drive multiple times does over time shorten its lifespan, but that's just because of heavy use, not necessarily from a formatting perspective.
Thank you.
Good question, though. All right. Sanitation. This is overwriting the information on a drive. And usually when you talk about somebody using bleach bit, DBAN, couple other programs, basically what it's doing is it's copying new data over the drives multiple times. Some of them tout like, oh yeah, we do it 8 times and the FBI can only recover from 6. We do it 24 times, we do it 32 times. The point being is it is just continually writing over the drives with just random 1s and 0s repeatedly over each section, cleansing whatever data was on there prior. So that is a form of sanitation and is called overwriting. And one of the most common types of software from this time period is called DBAN, or Darik's Boot and Nuke. So quite literally, once you run this program, you are starting pretty much from scratch. questions with regards to sanitation? All right. Other type, drive wipe. So if it is possible to verify beyond a reasonable doubt that a piece of hardware that's no longer being used doesn't contain any data that is sensitive or proprietary, the hardware can be recycled. Now, before you would hand over anything for recycling, you want to be sure that there is no personally identifiable information. There is no, proprietary research and development, any of that stuff. So they have specialized utilities that can do drive wiping. Now, if there is no way to be assured whether or not all the data has been removed or destroyed or what have you, at that point, data just like drive destruction is your only option. So if it is extremely sensitive, proprietary information, drive destruction is your best option. So what you may do is you may pull the hard drives out, destroy the hard drives, but recycle the rest of the computer. They can put new hard drives in, be reused for schools or nonprofits or what have you. Hey, fill in the blanks. All right. So blank kind of formatting that sets up the file system, installs the boot sector, and clears out any file table that might be in the system. However, it doesn't physically remove any of the old data from the drive. What is that?
Quick.
Quick. All right, blank kind of formatting is not only going to set up the file system, it is going to fully erase all data on the drive and check for bad sectors. Regular. And blank is the kind of formatting is not operating system dependent and completely wipe the disk clean.
Low level.
Low level. Nice. All right. On to physical destruction. So physical destruction essentially involves rendering the component no longer usable. While the focus is on hard drives, you can also physically destroy other forms of media, such as flash drives, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, all kinds of fun stuff like that too. And it's highly recommended, even if it's broken, before you throw it away, if it had sensitive information on it at one point, take your frustrations out on it, hit it with a hammer a few times, you know, just make sure. One of the main ways that you'll see people do this today, they actually have industrial shredders or companies you can hire that'll come out. They come by with a big truck with the big shredders in it, and you throw the hard drives in it. It basically does like what a normal shredder does to paper. It chews it up into tiny little bits, spits it out, making all the data unrecoverable. Paper shredders, not all paper shredders are created equal, Jerusalem. Some of them have big sections that they carve the paper up into. And it actually, you know, with a scanner and some algorithms like programs, you can actually scan all the shredded paperwork and the algorithm will piece it together like a puzzle. And so you can actually recover the data through the shredded material. It's actually doable. They have shredders that go far more extreme. One of the ones I had in my office, because we had some executives working in our office who were, you know, sufficiently paranoid. So they actually had a shredder that was so intense, it turned the paper quite literally into a fine powder. There was no way of recovering it at that point. But that isn't even the most paranoid paper shredder I've ever heard of. There's ones that turn it into a fine powder and then add liquid to that powder, turning it into a mush and pulp. So it can go even a level beyond that. So when you're talking about ones that just do the straight cut through where it has just the long strings of paper, somebody properly motivated can put that information back together and repurpose it. So depending on the level of security you want at your office is going to determine the type of paper shredder you're going to use. Now, for hard drive shredders, this is a little different. These are much bigger industrial things with big teeth that crush the drives into an unusable state. Some paper shredders, though, you can actually use them for CDs, DVDs, credit cards, things like that. Many of them have like a center section that's a little more robust that can take on those kind of things. But hard drives, they tend to have the metal casings and stuff like that, so they're a little more intense. So industrial shredder, one of the main ways that you can get rid of them. Electromagnetic degaussing. Now, degaussing is a term that we might remember back when we were talking about monitors, especially CRT monitors. But it can also be used on magnetic drives. You use high-powered magnets, and that erases the vast majority of the data on the drive, which is why they would say keep magnets away from your computer, stuff like that, because it actually could damage, destroy, and erase data with it that's on it. Rachel.
So what happens when you microwave a hard drive?
You microwave a hard drive, you can do a significant amount of damage to the hard drive. I wouldn't rely upon that because if you're doing bit-to-bit transfers, if those individual sectors weren't thoroughly damaged in the microwaving process, then some of that data could still be recoverable with a forensic data recovery. Like if you ever microwaved, you know, like when you were a kid and, you know, didn't want to listen to your parents, you ever microwave tinfoil in a microwave, see what happens? It's basically like a lot of lightning hit the tinfoil. Would not advise doing this in a microwave you wish to keep. But sometimes it happens when you're a kid and you're like, why would they say not throw it in there? You throw it in, it's a great light show and you're like, oh, okay. So same thing kind of happens with the metal drives. It kind of creates those electric discharges. It may damage the majority of the sectors. The drive may be unusable to you, but somebody with forensic knowledge could still pull data from it. Interesting question. I have never got that one before. Susan.
If you're degaussing the drive and wiping the data off, wouldn't it make the drive unusable also.
Well, you would have to probably do a low level format after that to kind of reorient the drive to where it could be written again.
Okay.
That's my thought on that, but typically what they're saying is it essentially is rendering it unusable, which is why the whole section is just physical destruction. It is rendering it completely
Okay.
unusable. So this is what you do if you want to guarantee that that information cannot be recovered no matter what. These are your physical destruction methods. So first two so far, industrial shredder and electromagnetic degaussing. For what some may call the most fun way to get rid of it, you have the drill and hammer method, where on CDs, DVDs, you're kind of shattering them. Hard drives, like the mechanical drives, you drill some holes through them, or you take a hammer to it and shatter the platter or break, make it essentially warped and unusable. It is a good way to get rid of it. Unfortunately, like if you have one or two drives, this is fine. But if you're in IT and they give you 1,000 drives to get rid of, that can take a lot of time thoroughly destroying them. It may seem fun for the first 5 or 10, but when you get to drive 532, it may be a lot less fun. So if you only have a couple to get rid of, that's, might be okay. Unless the company requires certificates of destruction to verify that this data has been destroyed, then you need to bring in a third party that offers that service. All right. There you go, Jessica. So physical destruction, drill and hammer, paper shredder, electromagnetic degaussing. Onward, we now get to incineration. Basically, really hot fires. Now, hard drives, CDs, DVDs, solid state, floppies, all that stuff must be reduced to ash for it to be considered unusable with regards to incineration. Or the hard drive platter must be extremely physically extremely physically deformed and unable to be used. This comes up a lot with paper where they're like, oh, just throw it in the fire and burn it, not realizing that often a lot of that paper doesn't necessarily get burned and you can still recover a lot of data from it. So, you have to burn that fire really hot, really long to actually fully destroy what you're trying to get rid of. Then finally, we will talk about certificates of destruction, which are documents that are given to you that attest to either the physical destruction of the media, which the sensitive data has been located, or scientifically approved method of removing the data from the drive. And this is stuff that you would have to keep on file for auditing purposes, especially if you're handling any kind of sensitive data, research and development, stuff like that. Shareholders may require it, or if you're contracted through other companies, they may require it. So if the data ever gets out, they'll be like, look, you had 500 drives that you replaced last year. What did you do with those drives? You go, well, here you go. Here's a certificate, the company we use, said that they incinerated all the drives. Yes, Karen.
Do the companies that come out and pick up the documents from, like, just say the hospital, do they provide certificates of destruction?
For the documents, maybe not. For computer equipment, likely. And a lot of the ones that come out and pick up the stuff like documentation, if it's meant for destruction, they destroy it right there on the spot.
And
they
the
don't want to
trucks?
run, they don't want, like, the truck itself is a giant shredder and storage unit for shredded paper, because they don't want to run the risk of being, transporting this data and something happening in transit. So they quite literally do it on the spot.
Okay. So do those companies actually provide provide destruction of hard drives and stuff, or is that something specifically for IT?
Some companies, some of those companies may do, like they may specialize in data destruction. So they may have paper shredders, they may have drive shredders, stuff like that. There's some places here in Jacksonville that actually do physical warehousing of hard drives. Like they have security. Like there was a company that worked in the same building that we did. They showed up 3 times a week, picked up hard drives in lock boxes in armored cars. And then they would
Wow.
take those hard drives to a physical storage unit, like a warehouse with armed guards and stuff like that. And they would store all the hard drives there.
Wow.
So there are companies that specialize in that kind of stuff too. And they probably also did destruction as well. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on the company. Some companies may be much more specialized where we only do paper. Some were like, we'll do paper, hard drives, DVDs, what have you. We offer up certificates of destruction, for auditing purposes. And we may also do data storage in our warehouse. Now, if they did physical destruction and data recovery, I would be worried.
Yeah, that sounds like a oxymoron to me.
Yeah, so I would be considering like, it seems like you're playing both sides here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Any other questions? All right. Couple practice methods here. Let's see. Leela, can you please read for us?
Mark is a senior in college and is graduating in June. His new job will be buying him a brand new laptop. He is trying to sell his current laptop to someone at his college to make a little cash upon graduation. Which data destruction method should he use?
Okay, so he's had a laptop that he's been using for college. He's selling it to somebody else in that college. What method do we think we should use to give that date or to give that computer to them, and why?
One of the sanitation methods.
Okay. Why?
Because he used it for college, so it's probably not much sensitive data on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he could just kind of do a factory reset on it, basically.
Okay. So he doesn't have complete trust of the person he's giving it to, but there is a moderate level, because they're going into college, unless they're going in for, computer science, and maybe want to be a little bit more cautious with them. But so a sanitation where you're doing multiple rewrites might be good enough to get them that information. So, okay. Fair. Drive wipe. Hunter makes a good point. Ideally, they would want a hard drive in their new laptop. I was recycling a laptop through Best Buy at one point, and they were saying like, yeah, we can refurbish and resell it if you want and give you some money for the laptop if you don't want to recycle it. And I was like, well, the hard drive's been ripped out and the screen's broken. What do you think it's worth? And they're like, oh, nothing at that point. And I was like, okay, we're good. So, all right, scenario 2. Glean, can you read for us, please?
Fortune 500 retailer required certified secure destruction of over 1,000 hard drives and removal and recycling of 350 PCs. All work had to be certified with complete accountability and auditing trails. Which data destruction method should he use?
All right, what should we use here?
Iteration.
Is it erasure? Is that what you said?
Oh, incineration.
Oh, incineration. There you go. There's one. Incineration. So we got to get that. We got to get that certificate of destruction. It says they're requesting that accountability. So I see that in the chat. Good deal. Is there any other method we could use?
Drill and hammer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, if you're not the one doing it yourself, that might be okay. So drill and hammer. Susan's got one. Shred. I'm going to shred it. So that'd be a good one. We got one more out there we could use.
Degaussing.
Degaussing. Electromagnetic degaussing. So we could degauss it. We could shred it. We could burn it. If we really wanted to, we could use a drill and a hammer. Take it out back and give it the office space treatment. All right. Scenario number 3. Maftuna, you read scenario 3 for us, please.
You are giving your computer to your parents. Which data destruction method should you use?
So if we're giving our computer to our parents, what kind of method would we use?
Format.
Candido's got it. Quick format. Because there's, in theory, there's the assumption that there is a high level of trust between you and your parents. You know, like that obviously can vary based on the family, but in theory, what they're trying to get at is there is a close link between you and the person. There's a high level of trust. So you're only gonna get the quick format just to kind of quickly erase it and hand it off to them, because you're not gonna supposedly be worried about them trying to steal your identity or something like that. But my caveat is it depends on the family. What do I know? I'm a cynic. All right. When and why would you suggest to a client that they bring in a third party to destroy the data? When and why would we bring in somebody else rather than do it ourselves?
There's a lot of drives too, for sure.
Volume, that would be one. Hunter?
I'm guessing if we needed one of those certificates in case of an audit.
Certificates of destruction, very good. Susan also got that one in the chat. Higher security, Yaza, I like that. I mean, we would kind of like, even for our own sake, we would want to guarantee that it was actually done correctly, right? So we want somebody that's specialized in something like this, but come in and actually take care of it properly. What does a third-party company provide its clients to confirm their data has been disposed of properly? COD, certificate of destruction, not to be confused with cash on delivery. So certificate of destruction, or Call of Duty. There's another one. Yeah. A lot of these acronyms kind of bleed over. You gotta context. And what gets worse is when you start studying other aspects of IT, the acronyms you use for A+, they reuse some of those acronyms for other things. So when somebody asks you a question like, what's a Mac? You'll be like, can you use it in a sentence? Because there's a couple different ways that they use that acronym. So you got to pay attention to context. So certificate of destruction. Here we go. What does a degausser use to render drive electronics unusable?
Use a magnetic field.
Electromagnet, very powerful magnets. So very, very strong magnets. Very good. Name a way to physically destroy data. Quick, come off mute, shout it out.
Drill and
Hammer and drill.
Drill and hammer,
shredding.
shredding,
Gauzing.
degaussing,
Burn.
incinerating. There's actually one that's not mentioned here that's being used more, which is actually like acid, like actually like using acid on the drives. And that also can destroy the drives as well. So that's one that's not on the test, but one that actually is used. All right. Name a reason why we would want to wipe a computer clean of data.
So
For
information.
security
Well, yeah.
or privacy of your security, you know, your sensitive information.
Sensitive information. There we go. Anything else we can think of?
To be able to reuse it.
To sell it.
Be able to reuse it, to sell it, recycle it. You guys have been with me for 2 months now. None of you said paranoia. Come on. But yeah, research and development. You're a spy. There you go, Mark. So yeah, all valid reasons why you would want to kind of clean that data off of your computers. There we go. Candido got it for me. Paranoia. All right. I believe this is the last one. This is an entire full drive erase and data removal program. Full drive erase completely overwrites everything that is on the drive. Not sure there's a question in there.
Would that be like the low level?
Completely overwrites everything on the drive. So it's overwriting.
Oh, override. Oh,
What's the name of a program, the most popular program that is used in overwriting?
D-ban.
D-ban.
Dark. Boot. And nuke.
Yep, they're expanding nuke. So D-ban, popular overwriting methodology. We have our exit ticket.